That's great. Well, look, I'll kick off. Look, it's great to meet you, Marius, and welcome to my podcast called Training, Thought and Truth, which comes from physical, mental and spiritual health. And it's our first time talking. We don't know anything about each other, but I did see your post on Facebook a few days ago. I think you had it up on one of the mountain bike forums that of your new book. Or is it new? I Ate a Jeep.
Yeah, well, it's something that it's a process that's maybe 7 years into the making. You know, it's since the accident happened to me, and then the process of recovering and working towards a healthy person again on the other side. You know, so it's been quite a process, and eventually, part of my healing process for my brain injury that I occurred was to think intentionally and to journal, to write things down. And eventually, I realized that I have a couple of chapters here that if I put them in a proper order, it can maybe create a book. And that's where the thought came from eventually, is to actually document the process properly and then see if the lessons that I've learned along the way can't help somebody else that goes through the same kind of traumatic experience, you know?
Yeah, look, I'm looking forward to talking to you about it, but you might actually just tell us a bit about yourself first, and where you're calling from, and a few details about your own life.
Oh, so I'm 53 years old. I've lived in South Africa my whole life, and one day I was complaining to a friend that I can't run anymore because my knees are shot from running, and he said, well, why don't you try a bicycle? And I got onto a bike, and all of a sudden this new passion was born a couple of years ago, you know, and I started cycling. And one evening, my wife and myself were walking the dogs, and we came across a lady that I know, and she was walking her dog. And she said she just saw on the internet there's this guy that's launching a new event. They call it the Trans-Africa, which is a cycling race from Beitbridge on the border of Zimbabwe. And it's 2,850 Ks back to Cape Town. And I thought, geez, you know, I need an adventure. I need something to do. And it was 3 months away from the entry date, or, you know, from the start date. And I thought I was going to do it. And I started exercising, did a couple of training rides. And 3 months later, I was doing this absolutely life-changing ride through my own country. If you understand South Africa, Beitbridge is pretty much in the bushveld of Africa, and it's not densely populated. There's still people living off the land out there, you know, and it was so life-enriching to actually go through your own country and to experience people that you didn't know existed. Wow. Yeah, 3 weeks after that, I was run over by a Jeep one morning on a training ride. So
Tell me,
going from
you're is this gravel bike or is it road bike or mountain bike?
it's a mountain bike. So I've I've never really had a passion for the road bike kind of. I don't feel comfortable on the thin wheels and sitting over the handlebar, you know. So I've always been very comfy on the thicker wheels,
Yes.
and I enjoy the fact that the gravel biking or gravel roads takes you away from the hustle and bustle of city life, and you know you get a bit of fresh air and you get some peace.
Yes,
Where if
absolutely.
you have to stick to the tar roads, you know it's you never get away.
Mhm.
And that's the only reason why I've really chosen to stick to gravel and the off road side of it.
Well, you were a runner beforehand, were you?
Excuse me?
You did a lot of running before you set onto the bike.
Yeah, just road running, and a bit of trail running. I really enjoy. It was my psychiatry was to put on my running shoes and hit the road. You know, I really enjoyed that. I did a lot of spearfishing. I did a lot of scuba diving. You know, I enjoyed the outdoors quite a bit.
Yeah,
And
it's an
cycling,
amazing difference. You know, sometimes when you go from road running or road cycling, and then go trail running or mountain biking, like just that extra bit of wilderness or being out in the elements more, taking you away from, like you said, the hustle and bustle. It's really rejuvenating almost. It's really refreshing, isn't it? Like I do it once a week, and it clears your head. Like after a stressful work week, it can make you brand new afterwards.
oh, absolutely, it's absolutely refreshing. Just to go get all the cobwebs sorted, and you kind of have get an opportunity to put your game plan together, you know, and then go and review the past week and fix the challenges for the week coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
have that. Yeah, I have that experience too. I really savor the time out there in the quiet and the peace.
Yeah, because sometimes, you know, when you're always plugged in and always close to home, you never get a chance to think your thoughts or plan out your days or, I do find when you're out doing long exercises up in the mountain somewhere, you get a chance to think about your mind relaxes and wanders and you come up with some of your best ideas sometimes and especially on long trail runs, especially. I find on mountain biking it's a kind of yin yang feeling where it's like that Taoist symbol where they have the serpent, the white one, and the black dot, and you're on the edge of chaos and order. You know what I mean? You have to concentrate on what's in front of you,
Yeah,
and you have to be ready. It's thrilling, that's the other side of it. But obviously, one of your cycles
yeah.
one day was a bit too thrilling.
Yeah, a little bit too much, and you know you're gonna laugh at me, but a friend and myself we were doing a training ride, and I looked around at Wayne, and this is the last thing I actually remember from the accident. Is I told Wayne, my friend, listen, let's get off this tar road and let's go onto the gravel road. We know the gravel road is quieter because it was seven o'clock on a Friday morning. So the morning traffic was just starting to build up. And 20 minutes later, yeah, my life was changed, you know. And there was this youngster, he was in a Jeep, at a 4x4, and he was a trainee pilot. And there's a little airfield just outside our town. And he was in a rush to get to his next lesson. And he took a shortcut between the farms. And he was just going a bit too fast around the corner, and we were coming up on the other side. And unfortunately, the accident happened, you know. So, yeah, it's obviously he didn't wake up that morning deciding he was going to run over Marius on his mountain bike, you know. So, the poor guy had the worst day of his life, most probably happening to him at the same time I was having mine.
Yeah. And how bad was it? Like, do you remember the Jeep approaching, or like when did you blank out? How bad was the actual crash?
Um, okay, so I remember absolutely nothing. 20 minutes beforehand, when we had the chat that we were going to go off the tar road, is my last actual memory, my own memory. And then I remember from about the 23rd day after the accident, when they moved me from my hospital bed, I had to get out of the bed into a chair next to my bed. And I remember that was quite excruciating because that was the first time that I actually moved, that I, remember. So it was quite serious. I bled out within 7 minutes. My heart stopped. After 7 minutes, I bled out internally. My right kidney burst. So I physically died the first time after 7 minutes, and the doctor arrived about 3 minutes after that. And then they struggled to resuscitate me the first time. Um, so the people that actually stumbled upon the accident that was cycling about half a kilometer behind us. This chap, I don't know if you're aware of the Absa Cape Epic, the mountain bike race. It's a very well-known mountain bike race here in South Africa. Now, he was the organizer for Absa Bank, which is one of the bigger banks in our country. And he used to organize that the bank's clients, celebrities, would cycle with cyclists that are kind of strong cyclists. And so he could phone his team doctor that lived less than 10 k's away from where the accident happened, and he still had a medical bag in the car that had drips and so on, because the ambulance couldn't find me. They only rocked up an hour later. So if it wasn't for Aaron's who called his team doctor Neil, that actually came to help me within 10 minutes of the accident, I wouldn't have pulled through. So that's how God had his hand in and on the events. And I'm mentioning God now because I wasn't a Christian at the time. And my spiritual development only came later, 5 years later, into this whole process of healing and recovery. So it was, if I say it was a life-changing experience or event, it changed my life on so many levels, and it touched me and people around me on so many different levels that I had to put it into a book to actually, what is the right word when you speak to people in a church and you tell them about your
testimony.
There's a testimony. That's right. So my first language is Afrikaans. You must excuse when I don't get onto the right word. But anyway, so yes, I felt that my testimony was extremely important, because I think there's many people that struggle with exactly the things that I was struggling with, and still day to day struggle with, recovering after it.
And tell me, sorry, how long ago did you say this happened?
This happened the end of 2014, so November 2014. So it's about 7 years into the process of recovering. And
So,
Anthony, at one point I struggled to put words into a sentence. I couldn't read properly. I couldn't write properly. I couldn't walk. I had to learn how to walk again. My back was broken. My pelvis was broken in many places. My foot, my knee, my arm was shattered. My ribs was into my lungs. I had many injuries. So I went in. The car hit me from the front. So the handlebar hit me on my crown jewels and broke off the bicycle. So my crown jewels was the size of a small soccer ball. Um, uh, golly, because of every time my heart stopped, I had oxygen shortage. So my verbal memory was damaged in the process, and my cognitive management skills were damaged. Um, due to the oxygen shortage, there was a bit of brain damage that caused that. So
It's a massive list of
yeah, it's
injuries.
it sounds horrific, but with God's hand on my life, I couldn't understand. I was quite a nasty oak, and I would use horrible language, and I tipped, or I was in the restaurant industry my whole life, so I made people work hard and long hours, and they saw their families little, and I would take every last bit I could from the stone. And I struggled to understand why God saved my life. Why? Because going under the car with two bicycles going like mincing blades, I should have come out on the other side in pieces. And then the fence, when the car dragged me over the side of the road, the fence on the side of the road actually ripped me out from under the car and flung me through the air. So I shouldn't have been alive. And and the only reason why I'm here today is because of God saved my life. And I never realized that. I was on a bicycle about 4 years later, after a lot of hard work and exercise and rehabbing and pool work in the gyms and and I was cycling behind two guys that were speaking about their conversations with God. And I listened to them and I said, but chaps, you have these conversations with God, and I'm 50 years old. So it's 3 years ago because I'm 53 now. I'm 50 years old and I've never had a conversation with God. And the one chap knew me and he said, Marius, you must either be hard of hearing or you must be stupid, because God spoke to you 3 times in one morning. When every time my heart stopped and I was resuscitated. And the penny dropped and I realized, but goodness gracious, John has a point here. God spoke to me. And that day I realized that God saved my life. And then a new process in my life started of religion. I had to learn what religion is, because for 50 years I never really practiced religion. I would go to church when I was at school because your parents tell you have to go, but it never had meaning. And all of a sudden, this whole new dimension of being a human being or being an adult developed for me, which was quite enriching. And I started meeting people that had such a more richer life experience than I kind of thought I had up to that point. So the process didn't only bring bad things into my life, it also brought some good things into my life. Um, can you actually hear me?
I can.
Anthony, do you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, yeah. I can. It's a great story.
Okay.
I was just letting you share. Because I'm interested in, really, I was quite skeptical until about 5 years ago myself, and I had some experiences which changed my thought process. So I just was interested in hearing, you know, from the penny dropping, you're saying, going out with the guys, what started to happen mentally with you then? Like, was it straight away you wanted to find out, well, is there evidence behind this, or did you say, right, I might get myself a Bible, I may get back to church? What way did you go about it from there, or were you filled with a different sense of purpose then to look into this stuff?
Um, Golly. All right. So I'm going to leave structure to this conversation in your hands because I get verbal diarrhea and I jump all over the show.
That's okay.
So, in terms of context, it was difficult for me. I had to put certain structures into my life for me to actively and meaningfully recover from where I was at. So I was struggling on different uh, uh, how would I say dimensions of my life because um, one of the big things was I felt less than. I felt less than what I used to feel because I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember conversations. I was getting panic attacks because I was being so angsty of what I was going to forget that I decided to disengage. I disengaged from friends. I stopped going to, we call it braai, when you barbecue. This maybe the Americans call it a barbecue. So you cook meat over an open fire. And that's a big tradition here for us. So when you meet friends, you go for a braai, a barbecue. I started withdrawing from those things. And all of a sudden, when I started withdrawing, when you go to a barbecue, then you have beer and you have a brandy and Coke. And I wasn't having that with the people anymore that I used to have my drinks with. So slowly but surely, I was being invited by people that goes to church and practice religion. And then I was invited by one of them to join a Alpha course, which is, you'll have to Google it to see what an Alpha course is. But it's to find out more about religion and God. And it's a very interesting course, was developed by a chap from England, a barrister from England that became a pastor. Nicky Gumbel is his name. And this was an absolutely amazing course because all of a sudden I was on a Zoom platform during COVID. I was doing this amazing Alpha course, meeting people that I've never met before, and we sharing about religion and belief and understanding and not understanding. And I was accepted into a new kind of experiential side of life that I missed out on, that I never realized was there. And slowly but surely, you become more interested. And I started figuring out that prayer actually was my conversations with God. And how much prayer, like you say, you're on your bicycle and you're going on the gravel and you actually get clarity on certain things. I was experiencing that prayer was helping me to get clarity on some of my questions, just everyday things in my life. And while I was praying, I would get clarity, I would get an answer on something. And I started enjoying that. And that was the fuel on my fire to get more involved with religion and starting to read the Bible and just slowly but surely getting my toes into the water and actually enjoying becoming part of a religion that I always knew was there, but I never found a link to it. I never, and I think I think the accident was God's way of giving me a big clout, opening my ears and telling me, listen, I love you. I care about you. I want you, you know. And that's why religion is it means something to me now. Where previously I I didn't have a link to it at all, and that's how it's developed for me, Anthony. Just slowly, and it's I've tried going to different churches, and I struggle with some of the churches because in some churches they play bands and they sing and they very charismatic, and I feel uncomfortable there. And then I go to another church and then I don't feel 100% comfortable there either. But I don't think that they're wrong doing what they're doing. I think God will lead you where He wants you to go eventually.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm just making myself available. I was prepared to write in my book that I'm prepared to, what was the word you used when you stand in church? And testimony. Yes, I'm prepared to give a testimony, and God will use me when He wants me to do a testimony, you know.
And you tell me this, and it might be a difficult question, but why Christianity?
That's what presented itself to me. Nothing else presented itself to me. So I've asked myself this question many times because in Cape Town we have a very cosmopolitan community. So we have many Muslims, we have all the Jewish religions, all of them over here. And there's not one of those people. All of them have a God. And all of them pray to their God, whether it's Allah, whether it's whoever. I believe in the greater good. And I believe that if your intentions are good, then I don't care. Marius doesn't care who your God is. Your intentions towards humanity is good.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't, in the old days they had the Crusades, and the religions fought against each other. I don't believe that that's necessary for us to understand, that we believe in something that's good and good for all of us.
Yes.
We can call it whatever we like, so it is a challenging question, but I've made up my mind that I'm not prepared to choose whether somebody is right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
As long as what their motives are good, I am okay with it.
And you specifically, though, you personally are praying to Jesus, though, in your own. That's where you found the communication link.
That's right. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Similar right. to myself. The only reason I'm asking, I would found. I don't know if you found this, and it's a question. When I had a spiritual turnaround, or my born again experience, my mentality, like yours, started to shift. Things like work became less important, material things became less important, spending time at home became more important, and but I also had this kind of fire in the belly that was bringing me places, call it maybe intuition, or it's probably why I'm doing the podcast or why we're speaking right now, and it's my own testimony, I suppose. But I did find I got a lot of resistance from maybe some friends and family, that silly stuff, this, that, and the other. And it did make me want to delve into, is there reason behind the faith, and I did go down the Christian road because that's, in my experience, that's who presented himself to me. That specific
Yes.
character I found came forward in a dark time, and I was like, okay, now I have to believe it because of what I went through. But what's the basis behind it? And I found great evidence behind it. Historical evidence. I even flew to Israel, and
Oh,
I,
wow.
yeah, I was rebaptized in the River Jordan, and um, a lot of stuff. And my parents don't practice it. It wasn't, but it was that character who presented itself. Did you find any resistance yourself? If you went home from that bike ride, did you speak to your family and did they say, "Oh, that's a strange thing for you to come out with"? Were they surprised?
It was a very organic shift that happened over time, where now, golly, life takes you along weird and wonderful roads. So my wife was absolutely amazing in my recovery process. She assisted me as well as she could. Anthony, as I came home, she saw that I was sitting in front of the television and I wasn't exercising, I wasn't working on my recovery. So she found the orphanage and she donated the TV so that I couldn't sit in front of the telly anymore, that I
Wow.
had to lift my bum and go to gym. So she was wonderful. She took over the finances. She managed everything. She was absolutely amazing. However, 7 years later, she wants to divorce. Um, she's had enough of my memory being poor, and I can't remember certain things. And but she's not a Christian. She's more of a Buddhist than a Christian. So it's been a organic, slow shift. And the same happened with the friends that I told you that we were having drinks with a barbecue, and I stopped going to the barbecue. So my friends have changed, and it was a slow, organic shift. So it wasn't a sudden change in my case. No, it was a slow, organic shift, a move towards God brought other people into my life slowly. People that would come and visit me because they were interested they knew me because of the kids doing sport at school. And they would pop by and say, "How's it?" And 2 hours later, it would end up on a discussion about church and where do you go and why don't you go. And it was never planned. But God brought this into my life slowly over the last 7 years. And then there was the shift the day that I had the bicycle ride in the olive grove where I heard the two oaks talking in front of me. And there was a big shift from that moment on, yes. But it's slowly but surely beforehand, I was being set up for a shift, definitely.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You can see. You can sometimes. Well, I find you can see, like you said, your company changed. Um, you can kind of see. I know it's a terrible thing that happened to you. But it's almost a rebirth in a way. You
Yeah,
find you can find, like, if that never happened, maybe physically you might be better off, but spiritually maybe not.
yeah,
You wouldn't have seen that sign, or you wouldn't have even been in that place to hear them lads talking that day. I do find that sometimes we do have to go to the lowest lows to find ourselves, I think. And it helps us also, the fact that you're so willing to tell your testimony, it also reaches people who are also, might be sitting in a hospital bed or sitting at home recovering. Um, some they need someone to relate to who's gone through every bit of pain that they went through. And you're probably like I know I haven't. It's only my second podcast this year. Funny enough, I've taken the foot
Oh
off the
wow.
gas. Yeah, but it does reach 40 plus countries, and people do hear it,
Oh wow.
and I do know each one. I don't regret an episode I've done, and I do find like that even the guests kind of come to me in a funny way. I do think a lot of things are set up to happen because only last week, I was listening to. I had a bang with my bike a few years ago. I road bike. I was carrying a bag on the handlebars. The bag caught in the spokes. I went
Hmm.
over the top, and the bike got broke up. But I got broke up. I needed surgery. I had 11-inch bar in my shoulder now.
Oh.
And the doctor said, that helmet saved you. He said,
Hmm.
you hit the back. I hit my head first, but I hit the back of my shoulder blade, and I blew up my collarbone. And he said,
Yeah.
in a few places, and he said that, and I hadn't got a lot of things on track at the time. My health wasn't there correctly. I was at home. It gave me a chance to do a couple of podcasts to reset myself, to get my health on track, and like that, it probably got me into groups talking to people as well about
Hmm.
a lot minor compared to your crash, but still enough to kickstart me in a certain direction.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but even I was watching, I got really big into mountain biking this year. Actually, probably the end of last year. I was always on the road bike. I was out running lately. But I really, a friend got a mountain bike and said, "Why don't you get one and come along?" And I loved it. I'm not that good, but
Hmm.
I love it, and I'm out every weekend now. And it resets me, and I connect to nature. And I think one
Hmm.
thing I have found since my born again experience is that the the colors of the mountains are more vibrant almost. You have that much more appreciation. You're looking over the hills, and I say it to a few guys, look at this sun shining through the trees there, and there's
Hmm.
you and your nature again. But you really breathe
Hmm.
it in, I think, a lot more. Do you find that?
Um, I'm going to tell you two stories. Um, and I need to start a little bit back. So I was sitting in the rehab, and it was Christmas time, and I was feeling very sorry for myself. And I was considering suicide, and I was thinking that I don't know how I was going to make this happen, and I was crying there by myself. And the occupational therapist, this young little girl, a student, came there, and she looked at me and she said, "What's happening?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I ever will be on a bicycle again. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do sport again." Because sport was a big part of me, and outdoor activity. And she left me, and she came back half an hour later, and she said, "Come, get up." And I was struggling at that point. I was really very frail, and she said, "Come, let's go to the gym." And the rehab gym didn't have a stationary bicycle at that point, but she went and she found one somewhere, and she set a stationary bike up for me. And she told me, "Come, get out of the wheelchair and climb on." And I was struggling to get out of the wheelchair, and she said, "Come, get on the bike." I said, "No, I can't," because I wasn't sure whether my pelvis would be able to sit on the saddle at that point. And true as Bob, she got me onto the bike, and my legs started turning, and I started pedaling, and the tears shot out of my eyes. And that moment, I realized that my recovery was in my hands. It wasn't in anybody else's hands, but it took that young girl to actually flip my switch for me. And if you're telling me there's many people that listen to this podcast that could be sitting in a hospital bed somewhere, or those people must just realize that if you breathe, there's still opportunity for your switch to get flipped and your legs to start spinning about, and your life can go into a whole new direction. Then the second part of the story that I told you, the story comes in two parts, is you made a comment earlier that you got this new fire in your belly. You started working less and spending more time with the family. In my life, exactly the same thing happened. Because of my brain injury, I couldn't do the work anymore that I used to do. So I become unemployed. And in reality, I'm unemployable in the job that I used to do. So God has brought other things across my life that I'm doing very efficiently now, but it developed over the last 2 or 3 years. So, yes, it does come with its own challenges and hardship, and my savings ran dry, and I had to make a plan. What am I going to do while I'm not earning an income? But God brought other opportunities across my way where my life is developing into now. And I'm actually enjoying myself much more than I used to enjoy myself for 33 years. So once again, there's method in God's madness, bringing something else into your life. And I think I think you feel like you feel unsure whether it's the right thing and whether you can do it. However, you must just take a step back and take a deep breath and have a can-do attitude. If the thought comes across your mind, that thought is there for a good reason. So go with it and give it a try. Mm-hmm. I mean, I couldn't read, I couldn't write, I couldn't string enough words to make a comprehensible sentence, and there God helped me to write the book.
It's amazing. Yeah,
that's how amazing it is. I don't know, did I answer your question?
You did, yeah. Look, I do think, yeah, because you were talking about that particular nurse who flipped a switch, and she was there probably for the right reason as well, and that's what I was getting at, and the person who needs to hear this, I think, will hear it. I think that's the that's the same idea. Like I obviously do my full-time job as well, and sometimes it can be very stressful, and it can be very demotivating, because I do find that high levels of stress can take away your creativity, and that's part of this, this expedient work, which is your paying the bills, doing your daily job. There's also a purposeful work, I think. I think we all have that second calling, and we don't necessarily see it. And I think it's the gospel. Thomas says, the kingdom is laid out before the eyes of men, but men do not see it. I think it's that other side of life that we need to aspire to do something with our spare time, or if you can make it your full time, absolutely, And that's, I think, my little, if it helps at all, my contribution is bringing people like yourself forward, to people who listen to this podcast, just spreading the word, guests on who have that story to tell and can reach people, and it does happen, so I do think that I was saying about things lining up, I was listening, obviously, on the mountain biking lately, watching a Netflix documentary on mountain biking, Accomplice, I believe it's called, and the song comes on, and it's up in the mountains, and it's called Silver Linings, and then as I'm watching it, I'm on Facebook. You probably see where this is going, and I'm on Facebook, and your post appears, and this guy is off the bike, and I said, wow, it's a long time since I did a podcast. And my friend of mine had asked me earlier that morning by text anything lined up, and I said, I have a few things in the back burner, but I haven't fired the trigger yet. And so that's when I said I seen your post, and I ate a Jeep, finding the silver linings, and I had you on the
Yeah.
mountain bike as well, on the mountain bike. So I was kind of like, oh, there's a few things that are coming up, and I do look out for them little signs, and that's I think as well. I do look out for them little signs. And a friend of mine who says to me, that's the one you have to go with. So I said, yeah, I don't know this guy at all. Have never spoke to him. But we'll find out a time zone, and we'll see if we can set it up. And that was my little tell for me to say that this is the guy you should have on for your next episode. And that's what I
Oh
mean.
wow.
I think that's the other side of life as well. They say your brain is split into two hemispheres, and the left is your numerical reasoning, your mathematics, your logical, your analytical thinking, and the right is your creativity and artistic, achievements and um, aesthetic values, because none of that can be tapped by science necessarily. So I think that if you have that side open, you need to be in the middle line of them too. You need to know what you're doing. You have to have some structure to it, but also you have to have your feet. It's back to that Taoist yin yang. You have to have your foot in one side of the chaos and the unknown. I think that's how we're supposed to live, and that's why our brains are separated that way. So that was my
Yeah.
living on the edge, listening to God. And that's what I found different from the transformation. My ear is open a little bit more to what's around me. I'm not as blind as I was. The colors are more
Yeah.
vibrant, and
Yeah.
that's
I
my
love your analogy of the vibrant colors. When I think of it as when you do an endurance event and you're taxing your body, I find that my body talks to me and it tells me I need sweet or I need salt or I need whatever I need to eat to fuel me. And I find that my conversation with God comes to me in very similar way. It's a thought passes your mind, and that's God speaking to you. Somebody's put that thought there, or something caused the thought to be there. And like you on your bike and you expanding your body to get the best from it, I find that I never planned to be a writer. I never planned. I started an internet business, and I've always been averse to computers or to learn how computer programs work. But God put it on my way to learn, and He gave me time to actually get used to these things. And it's like your colors. You see the colors, it motivates you, it energizes you. You kind of feel better afterwards. I don't think there's any other way that God speaks to us is by just putting that salt or sweet thought in your mouth. That's how he works with us.
Yeah, and I see that colors as if everything was slightly grayer before. It's maybe the beauty of life is shining a bit stronger now. I think it's kind of
Yeah.
value this. That's what it's telling me. It says enjoy this because you're out while you're going through life. You savor it almost. Because you're able to be on the bike.
Yeah.
Don't take it for granted that you're out in a lovely country. You're getting the freshest of air up in the hills. There's the beauty of the world around you, and you're there with friends, and you have family at home, and your health as well. And I find also as well when I'm digging deep, say on a long run or a tough cycle, I do get that. I do have that conversation also. It appears out of the what would you say, out of the unknown. This chat with God. I remember being I wasn't this fit. A friend of mine's in the army, and he brought me to a few Irish mountain running events, and I was at one that I shouldn't have been at. I just wasn't fit enough to be there. and I was at the far side of the mountain, and I was trying to climb this mountain, and it was a disaster, you know, and 3/4 of the people were gone up and over, and it was tough, and I could see people around me, and there's tears in their eyes, and these are the other guys who shouldn't have been there maybe, but you know, it was a slugfest, and this is when, you know, the mind started going. I said, you know, I really want to get a good result and actually even complete this. And this thought popped into my mind, you know, as I was asking for help. It was kind of, well, do you want, it's a comedic thought maybe, but the answer I was getting was, do you want my result or your result? You know, how hard have you trained for this, you know? And it was kind of, you know, do you want to earn this yourself almost, you know? And you could say, you could say, look, these thoughts are random, fabricated, but still, we don't know anything about the conscious mind. You know, science, it's still a complete mystery to people where our thoughts come from, or, you know, you're not manipulating your neurons voluntarily. You know, these things are popping up in split second, even as our dialogue goes, you know, it's split second stuff. We're speaking it out. There's a lot of stuff going on, you know. So sometimes when you get them answers, sometimes you do have to sit back and think and listen to it, you know. So I think, you know, that's my experience with having my ear open and listening. And I think it's great that, you know, as tough as it was what you had to go through and what we were probably still going through, you know, at least it's for a good purpose. Like you said, you're in the restaurant business, and, you know, you were probably a managerial position, pushing people, working hard, and now you're doing the opposite almost. You know, you're out to help people with your life now. It's a big change.
Yeah, absolutely. I like you reached out to me. A girl also contacted me, and her experience was absolutely the opposite to our experience. She went through an accident and massive injuries, and she ended up in the opposite direction of she doesn't believe there's a God because God wouldn't put her through the pain that she's actually going through. And I froze for the moment, you know, because I'm not a trained religious person. I'm not somebody to actually advise anybody on anything about religion. And the next moment I had this calm because I realized that I was put into her path. And that's why she reached out to me. And it was a lovely conversation. And normally people that are opposite, they kind of feel pushed away when you tell them you're religious and you're Christian, and they're skeptical. And we had a wonderful conversation for more than an hour. And I don't know her from a bar of soap. So that happened there it happened for a reason, you know, and totally organic conversation about a topic that normally would make me run for the hills. You know, I wouldn't be 3 years prior to today, I would avoid getting into religious conversations with people. But now I do it, and I feel so comfortable. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm just telling them my story, because that's all I really have to tell. And hopefully it can be testimony and assistance for them, you know.
Yeah, and I'm sure that must have planted a seed in her mind, you know. If nothing else, definitely, you know, got her thinking, I guess. You know, I don't know how that conversation ended, but, you know, it's not as if she'll walk away and forget about it 3 seconds later either.
No, and she had such an interesting story. She was a medical student when her accident happened, and they said she'll never complete medicine. And she completed medicine years later and became an anesthesiologist. And she's coped with all her challenges, and it's just, she, she also saw my post, like you saw my post, and something told her to reach out.
Mhm.
It's absolutely amazing how it works.
It is, because you say
Um,
something told her, but because we get these intuitions and we get these feelings, and funny you're mentioning about little signs, but you say about the anesthesiologist where she was trained to be. When I went in for my surgery for my shoulder, I was nervous, and I know I shouldn't have been. I was thinking of much tougher surgeries that people go through. Um, my father had a quadruple bypass not that long ago, and I can imagine, what
mm,
that's like in comparison to a shoulder surgery. But still, I was nervous about the thoughts of being put out and for a few hours. And, I wear a cross, and it has the Our Father on it. And I don't know if you can see that, but probably
oh
not.
wow, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Um, and I hold on to it, and I was saying my prayer to just everything to go well, because right before the surgery, the guy comes up to you and he says, "Look," he says, "it's not as simple as it sounds, sir. We're cutting through a lot of arteries and muscles and veins, so just sign this, consent form." And but then I got wheeled out into the hallway at the hospital, and I have my cross in my hand, and they say, "No, you can't take that in." I said, "Can I not even take it in without wearing it?" And they said, "No." So I said, "Okay, fine." So I was wheeled in, still nervous. I have a low resting heart rate. My heart rate's about 40 resting. I was about 75 or 80 lying in that bed, and just a bit of panic. But the girl, I was put through into the surgery room, and a woman walked over, the nurse, and she said, "Don't worry, I'll bring you to the anesthesiologist and I'll look after you." And as she said it, rock fell from under her collar of her nurse uniform, only a cross similar to mine.
My word,
And I looked up and I didn't say a word. And it was my sign to say, "I'll be in here with you." That was in my own head. And
absolutely.
the chances of that happening either, it was seconds after. And she walked into the little tiny room with the anesthesiologist, and I was put out and woke up and everything perfect. But it's little stuff like that that if your eyes are open, you see it. And I think maybe like you, my eyes were closed for a long time, and I think living your life with your eyes open is a much better way to be. I used to have dreams for
Mm,
years. I was blind. No, I'd be fine in a big area built up, and then next of all, a bit of chaos would go off. It was like a bomb went off or some kind of riot, and all of a sudden I was blind. I needed someone to guide me out. But then dreams went away a few years ago, and they never came back. And I think it's representative of um, knowing your way, having a guide, in life, and that's the way I take it anyway.
yeah, I golly, it's so nice having a conversation, Anthony. Um, I can tell you that since for the last 3 years of my life, where I knew that God came into my life, I I can live absolutely fearless every day, and that is such a relief because I just know that I have God on my side, and whether I'm wheeled in for surgery or whether I have to drive through a dangerous place, um, I can honestly tell you I live fearlessly because God will take me when He wants me, and then I'm in a better place anyway. That's how simple it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just having that knowledge or that feeling means so much to me. And I never had that feeling beforehand, and now I have it. So there is nobody can tell me there's nothing to this. Um, nobody will be able to convince me otherwise. And that's why I say there's so many silver linings to this whole experience. Yes, there was this horrible cloud, but the silver linings are all over the show, and that's why it's important to keep an eye on the silver linings rather than on the dark cloud.
Absolutely, yeah. And I look forward to reading your book as well, because I just it's a great it's a great tale. Even we're probably have to delve into a lot of it here, but it's nice to see a kind of positive story out there with all the doom and gloom at the moment. I know it's a rough story in the beginning, but the fact that you're spreading it, But are you helping out an adventure center as well? Like you're kind of a tour guide for biking. Am I getting that right?
Well, I offer some tours where I take people on, on what would you call it? Cycling tours, for that matter. 3-day, 4-day outings. There's some areas that are really close to my heart. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Karoo. It's quite an arid kind of area in the central of South Africa, the central area of South Africa. It's wide open spaces. There's not a lot of greenery. There's rocky formations. The wind, the wind can blow you to pieces. There's not, the wind picks up speed over the plains, and it can hammer you backwards on your bicycle. But there's very hospitable people, and they cook the most amazing food. And you can have these absolute fantastic short little holidays, not too far away from, civilization for that matter. And you can have a break and recuperate and become revitalized in 3 days, and have a lovely bicycle experience while you're doing it. So yeah, I have 3-4 areas that I take people to, and it started off with taking friends away for a couple of days just to have fun. And you know how it goes, people speak to each other, and quickly something develops into something else. So I call myself a chaperone more than a tour guide. I like having fun with the people, and not really, uh, having the responsibility of a formal tour guide as such. So I would say I facilitate the experience more than anything else.
Yeah, well, it's nice. You're probably the guide for a lot of people. Or it's great to be out in nature and doing them things. Um, I was going to say to you, do you have any messages? I don't want to ruin the ending of your book or anything, but would you have any words for some parting words for someone who is listening, who may be injured, maybe thinking, what that girl was thinking, that, why has this happened to me? Is there no purpose to this? Someone in a hospital bed, maybe recovering as well. Because I know you do try, and your goal is to reach people who are suffering from traumatic injuries.
I think the most important thing is you need to have something to look forward to. And the only way that I could find to create something for me to look forward to was to create a vision board. And I cut out pictures from magazines, and I stuck it on a piece of paper. And I put that piece of paper in my bedroom, and I could see it every day when I wake up and every evening before I go to bed. I could see the pictures of things that I wanted to go cycling in the mountains again. I want to go horse riding. I want to swim in the ocean with my son. I those things that gives you that warm belly feeling. You need to stick it up and put it somewhere where you can see it every day, because then you have a goal and you have a purpose. And I think then the second piece of advice that I would give somebody is to think intentionally. So whenever you feel like you get a bit of a speed wobble and you feel bad, you need to take a step back and take a deep breath and think about why you're having that speed wobble. And then think yourself through the problem and then carry on before you make stupid decisions. Give yourself the opportunity just to think a bit and to breathe a bit. That helped me tremendously, was to have the visual goals, and then on many occasions you get to a point where you feel you want to give up, or you don't know how you're going to get through this. You must just slow yourself down, because your mind runs away with the problems. And if you slow yourself down and you breathe, then you get an opportunity to see the solutions. And the last thing that I would say is, when you are in the moment of feeling despair and useless and helpless, is you must always remember you're not alone. There's always somebody that wants to help, not somebody that's prepared to help. There are people out there that love, and there are people that want to give. You must just be prepared to say, help me. And there are people that will listen and that will support you just because they care. So I think those are the 3 lessons I learned, and the mechanism that helped me tremendously to get through to the other side, Anthony.
That's a great message, and I really appreciate you sharing it. It's great because there's such a common interest in the sports side of it. It pulls other people into all the other dimensions of it. And I think sometimes that's why, maybe if there's a reason why we have certain creative gifts, it's to use them, in that way, to use them purposefully. And you might have had your cycling ability maybe in the beginning that caused the people to connect to that, and then you went through your transformation, and it's that one extra dimension of things, and it's probably your creative talents now that are helping you to get up and speak and bring people on your bike to these places out in nature to appreciate their life. So look, I really appreciate you telling your story, and I appreciate you coming on today, not knowing me from Adam. And I really enjoyed it, and I hope to read your book soon.
Fantastic, and thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for taking a chance on this person you didn't know from a bar of soap. Every time that I get the opportunity to share, I think it's part of my mental healing and my formation of becoming a new person, because people see you from the outside, you look like the old person, but they don't realize the inside is different,
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's a challenge, and sometimes it's a challenge for you yourself to understand that. And evenings like tonight just gives me confidence that I'm not that bad, and that I still have a chance at life, So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And I appreciate it. And I really enjoyed our conversation. So I hope we chat again soon.
Awesome. fantastic. I hope so too. It was
All
really
the,
nice to meet you. Thank you,
yeah,
Anthony.
nice to meet you too. All the best, Marius. Talk to you soon.
Keep well.